Chapter 4. Lord of the Ashes. Explicit warning. Gothir urged horse forward, closing the last 40 feet through Dunmere's smoke and chaos. His eyes locked on the hobgoblin leader, scarred, singed, and snarling as he shook off the sting of earlier spells. With a fluid leap, Gothir dismounted, hitting the ground at a run, his chiseled frame charging straight for the brute. The flaming sphere crackled behind him, its electric glow harrying the leader's guards, while the villagers' clamor, screams, clashing steel, the monstrous centipedes hissing, masked his approach. He was on the hobgoblin before the creature fully turned, slamming into his bulk with unyielding intent. Gothir's arms locked around the leader's torso, pinning one sword arm as he drove his weight forward. The hobgoblin, a towering 6 feet 2 inches to Gothir's 6 feet 3 inches, was strong, his leather armor creaking under the strain, but electric burns and missile wounds had him off balance. He roared, thrashing, but Gothir twisted, hooking a leg behind his and forcing him to his knees with a guttural grunt. "Yield, you ugly bastard," Gothir growled, tightening his hold as Gary flapped overhead, hooting fiercely. The leader snarled, his free hand clawing at Gothir's arm, but his strength faltered, winded, battered, and cornered. 30 feet back, the leader's guards flailed against the flaming sphere. One reeled, half his health scorched away, while the other shook off sparks, diving aside. Lirien, a shadow in the smoke, had dispatched one well smasher with a slit throat and now danced back from the other's wild swings, a dagger glinting. The monstrous centipede, summoned by Gothir's arcane will, pinned its prey near a tortured hut, mandibles dripping venom as it savaged a hobgoblin. Villagers peeked from hiding, and the cart's freed prisoner vanished into the haze, leaving Gothir at the heart of the fray. He tightened his grip, forcing the hobgoblin lower, the brute's knees grinding into the dirt. Smoke swirled around them, the crackle of the flaming sphere and Dunmere's screams a roaring backdrop. Gothir leaned in close, his voice a low, commanding growl cutting through the snarls. "Submit to me, you filthy cur. Call me your leader, or I'll fry you till your bones glow." His chiseled frame pressed down, one hand wrenching the sword arm back, the other clamping the hobgoblin's neck. The bone necklace swung against his chest, a jagged reminder of his growing legend. Gary perched on horse nearby, hooting sharply, adding to the pressure. The hobgoblin's scarred face twisted, his jagged helm slipping as he gasped. Gothir's earlier spells, electric burns and missile wounds, sapping his fight. He bucked once, clawing at Gothir's arm, but Gothir twisted harder, and the resistance crumbled. The leader choked out a guttural rasp, his beady eyes glaring up, hate, fear, and a flicker of respect warring within. "You, strong," he spat in broken common, voice hoarse. "Me, yield. You lead." His head dipped, not fully bowed but enough, submission, grudging and raw. His sword clattered to the ground, abandoned in the dirt. Lirien finished her dance. One well smasher lay dead, the other fleeing into the smoke, blood streaming from a gash. She spun toward Gothir, dagger dripping, her grin wild as she saw him pinning the leader. "God's goat, you tamed the bastard," she shouted, jogging over. The centipede still pinned its prey, mandibles buried in flesh, while the flaming sphere rolled one final time, felling a guard in a charred heap. The last guard scrambled into the fields, wounded and terrified, as the village quieted, villagers creeping out, staring in awe and terror. Gothir held the hobgoblin firm, his arms like steel bands as he issued a sharp whistle, signaling the centipede 30 feet away. "Finish it," he barked through the summoning bond. The beast obeyed, its mandibles snapping shut with a sickening crunch. The pinned hobgoblin's scream cut off as blood sprayed across the dirt, venom sealing its fate. The centipede reared back, clacking triumphantly, its summon time ticking closer to its end. The leader stiffened in Gothir's grasp, his eyes flicking to his dead lackey, but he didn't fight. Gothir's dominance was absolute. Lirien stepped closer, wiping her dagger on her cloak, her grin fierce. "Nice touch, goat. Nothing says boss like a bug ripping throats," she said, nodding at the centipede. "This one's yours now. What's the word?" She jerked her head at the leader, ready for his call. Villagers emerged fully now, gaunt faces, ragged clothes, staring from doorways and behind barrels. A woman with soot-streaked hair clutched a child, whispering. He stopped him. The cart's freed prisoner stumbled over, trembling but alive. "Thank ye. Thought I was meat," he rasped. Dunmere lay in ruins. Half the huts smoldered, bodies littered the ground, but Gothir had turned the tide. He tightened his grip, forcing the hobgoblin to meet his gaze, towering over the kneeling brute. The centipede's bloody work lay still nearby, and the air reeked of smoke and blood. "Name," Gothir demanded, his voice a low growl. Gary flapped down to perch on horse, golden eyes fixed on the scene, while the last echoes of battle faded into Dunmere's stunned silence. The hobgoblin's breath rasped, his helm hanging crooked as he glared up, defiance flickering but crushed. He coughed, spitting blood into the dirt before snarling, "Gorzard, Gorzard Ironfong." His beady eyes darted to his shattered crew, then back to Gothir, sizing him up, submission holding, resentment simmering. His scorched leather armor bore the marks of Gothir's electric onslaught, his sword useless beside him. Lirien stepped up, her dagger sheathed but her hand resting on its hilt, her smirk gone as she watched Gothir work. "Gorzard, huh? Sounds like a real charmer," she muttered, her tone dry but alert. "You've got his attention, goat. What's next?" The centipede skittered closer, its summon time nearly spent, mandibles dripping as it awaited Gothir's will. Villagers hovered at the edges, fearful, hopeful, whispering his name like a spark in the dark. Gothir tightened his hold on Gorzard Ironfong, forcing the scarred face up to meet his steely gaze. The centipede loomed, its mandibles clicking, and Gary's sharp boot cut through the tension. Gothir's voice boomed, deep and unyielding, carrying the weight of his Mage King ambition. "Gorzard, I'm your lord and savior now. You live because I will it. Swear loyalty to me, serve me, and I'll spare your miserable hide. Defy me, and you'll burn like your kin." He nodded toward the charred hobgoblin corpse by the flaming sphere's fading glow, his chiseled frame radiating authority, the bone necklace swinging against his chest. Gorzard's beady eyes narrowed, his breath ragged as he knelt, the fight leaching out of him. He glanced at the centipede, then the dead, his crew shattered, his raid undone. His jaw clenched, but he was cornered. With a guttural grunt, he rasped, "Gorzard, swear. You strong. Me serve, lord." His head dipped lower, a grudging yield, his pride bent under Gothir's dominance. His sword stayed in the dirt, a symbol of surrender. Lirien let out a low whistle, stepping closer as she sheathed her dagger fully, her green eyes glinting with amusement and respect. "Well, damn goat, you've got a pet hobgoblin now," she said, her voice dry but impressed. "Lord and savior, huh? That's one way to build an army." She smirked, glancing at Gorzard like he was a stray dog Gothir had just collared. The villagers crept closer, or overtaking fear. The soot-streaked woman clutched a child, whispering, "He tamed the beast." The cartman nodded, still shaky. "Saved us. Lord's got power." The centipede's summon expired, vanishing in a shimmer of arcane dust, leaving the pinned hobgoblin's corpse behind. Dunmere was a ruin, but Gothir had claimed its pulse, and Gorzard's loyalty, fragile as it was. Gothir loosened his grip on Gorzard Ironfong, letting the hobgoblin slump to his knees in the dirt. He stepped back, his presence still towering over the scarred brute. With a swift motion, he pulled a piece of parchment from his pack, its edges worn but crisp enough for his purpose. Grabbing a quill, he dipped it into the oozing wound on Gorzard's shoulder, dark, thick blood serving as ink. His hand moved with purpose, scrawling a binding contract in flowing script. "I, Gorzard Ironfong, pledge my life and blade to Gothir Grimgraw, my lord and savior. By this blood, I swear to shield him with my body, to strike his foes as my own, and to honor his will above all. No treachery shall pass my heart, for his mercy has bound me, and his power commands me. This oath, sealed in my life's essence, endures till death releases me." The words hummed with intent, not magically binding, no spell slot spent, but laced with arcane jargon to feel weighty, a psychological chain dressed in ritual. Gothir grabbed Gorzard's bloodied hand, the hobgoblin's fingers twitching as he pressed it hard against the parchment, leaving a smeared, crimson handprint to seal the life debt. He held it up briefly, letting the ink dry in the smoky air, then tucked it into his robes with a satisfied nod. Turning to Lirien, he flashed a grin. "Well, let's clean up and loot the bodies," he said, his voice casual but edged with triumph. Then he pivoted to Gorzard, pointing at the scattered dead. "You, round up the bodies. 2 piles, humans over there, hobgoblins there." He gestured to separate spots near the smoldering huts, his tone firm as horse snorted behind him, Gary preening on the saddle. Gorzard grunted, hauling himself up with a wince, his scarred face set in a scowl but obedient. He shuffled off, dragging the nearest hobgoblin corpse, his own kin, toward the pile, muttering in his guttural tongue. His loyalty was shaky, but the blood oath and Gothir's display held him for now. Lirien watched, her smirk returning as she sheathed her dagger and crossed her arms. "God's goat, you're a showman, blood contracts and all," she said, her tone a mix of amusement and awe. "That's one way to lock him down." Guess I'm looting with a lord now. Let's see what these bastards left us. She headed toward the fallen hobgoblin by the well, kicking it over to check its gear. Villagers hovered, whispering. Some approached cautiously. A man with a limp offered, We can help bury ours if you'll let us." Gothir raised a hand to the clustering crowd, his voice carrying over the murmurs and crackling embers. "You're free to do what you wish," he said, firm but not harsh. "I'm only here 'cause the guild sent me and her." He nodded toward Lirien, who rifled through a hobgoblin's gear. "We'll help clean up, bury your dead if you want, and come morning, we're riding back to the city to report the problems handled. You've got your village back. Make of it what you will." The man with the limp nodded, relief washing over his soot-streaked face, and a woman with a child whispered a shaky, "Bless ye." The villagers began to move, some toward their dead, others salvaging what remained of their homes. Gothir turned toward Gorzid, who dragged another hobgoblin corpse to the pile, his broad shoulders hunched, scarred face grim. The weight of his fallen crew hung heavy, and Gothir felt a flicker of compassion for the brute he'd bound. He strode over, boots crunching on ash, and softened his voice just enough. "Gorzid," he said, clapping a hand on the hobgoblin's arm as he paused, a body slung over his shoulder. "I know these were your kin, your band. Ain't easy piling 'em up like this. You did good, fighting for 'em, till I stepped in. Serve me right, and I'll make sure you've got a place. Better than raiding scraps." He met Gorzid's beady eyes, offering a nod. Not pity, but a warrior's respect, tempered by his new lordship. Gorzid grunted, dropping the corpse with a thud, his blood-crusted hand flexing. "They weak. You strong," he muttered, his common halting. "Me serve. No choice." A flicker of grudging acceptance crossed his face, perhaps the seed of loyalty, as he wiped his brow and hauled the next body, his pace steadier, less sullen. Lirien glanced up from looting, a rusty axe in one hand, a pouch of coins in the other. "Soft touch, goat," she teased, smirking as she tossed the pouch his way, clinking with copper and a few silvers. "He's yours now. Hope you're ready for the stink. Villagers'll manage. Let's strip these bastards and call it a night." She kicked over another body, checking its belt. Gothir caught the pouch, pocketing the coins with a grin, then knelt beside Lirien to loot the hobgoblin she'd flipped. He tugged a dented shortsword from its belt, decent steel, worth a few coins, and rummaged through its pockets, finding a crude bone dice set and a handful of coppers. "You know, I'm not a lord yet, Elle. Just thought it sounded nice when I took down a hobgoblin," he said, smirking as he nodded toward Gorzid, who piled bodies with a grunt. "He just needs a bath, and he'll smell better. Got to start bulking up a guard sooner or later, don't I?" He winked, prying a worn leather bracer off the corpse. Lirien snorted, pulling a rusty dagger and a sack of stale bread from her hobgoblin's gear. "Not a lord yet, huh? Could have fooled me with that savior bit. Had me half believing you'd crown yourself right here," she said, her tone teasing as she tossed the bread aside and pocketed the dagger. "Gorzid's a start, sure. Big, ugly start. Bath might help, but I'd wager he's still a walking privy. Guard, though. Yeah, you're on to something. One hobgoblin's a thug, a dozen's an army. Just don't expect me to scrub him down." Her green eyes glinted as she moved to the centipede's victim, fishing out a few more coppers and a chipped flint arrowhead. Gorzid finished the hobgoblin pile. 5 bodies, including the leader's guards and the well-smasher Lirien gutted. He started on the humans, 3 villagers, throats cut or skulls bashed, his movements slow but steady. The sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky orange over Dunmere's wreckage. Villagers shuffled nearby, some digging shallow graves, others salvaging scraps. Horse snorted, and Gary watched from his perch, the loot piling up between Gothir and Lirien. Gothir stashed the shortsword, bracer, bone dice, and his share of the coins into his pack as Gorzid dragged the last human body to its pile. The hobgoblin grunted, wiping blood-crusted hands on his tattered leather, the 2 stacks complete. Gothir gave Lirien a nod. "Hold the fort, Elle," and strode toward the villagers, boots crunching over ash and debris. Twilight settled over Dunmere's ruins as he scanned the crowd, offering help while keeping an eye out for any women worth charming. He approached a knot of villagers, ragged, soot-streaked, hollow-eyed. A man with a limp hauled a broken beam, struggling under its weight. Gothir stepped in, lifting it with ease, his chiseled arms flexing as he set it aside. "Need a hand?" he asked, voice warm but casual. The man nodded, grateful. "Aye, thank ye." Roof caved in, trying to clear it. Gothir helped shift more debris, his eyes roaming. A widow, mid-30s, plain but sturdy, knelt nearby, piling stones over a grave, her hands steady, no tears, not his type. A younger woman, early 20s, sobbed by a hut, cradling a dead boy. Brother, maybe. She was pretty, dark hair, soft features, but her raw grief killed any chance for charm. Then he spotted another, late 20s, blonde, freckled, tending a shallow grave alone. She had a quiet strength, her eyes red but dry, and a figure that caught his eye under her torn shawl. Gothir knelt beside her, offering a hand with the dirt. "Let me help," he said, his tone gentle but edged with that Gothir charm. "Lost someone close?" She glanced up, wary but not hostile. "My da," she muttered, voice hoarse. "Took an axe to the chest. Ye the one who stopped em." Her gaze lingered, taking in his frame, his afro, interest flickering, maybe. Gothir brushed dirt from his hands, keeping his eyes on the blonde as he softened his tone. "What's your name?" he asked, kneeling closer as she patted the grave smooth. "And which hut's yours?" His voice was warm, a lifeline in the dusk. Before she could answer, he twisted his head toward Lirien, raising his voice over the murmurs. Find a place for our stuff for the night." Lirien glanced up from the loot pile, smirking as she gave a mock salute. "Aye, lordship, on it," she called back, grabbing horse's reins and nudging Gothir to follow as she scouted a spot. The blonde met Gothir's gaze, her freckled face catching the last of the twilight as she wiped her hands on her shawl. "Name's Erin," she said, her voice low but clear. "Hut's that one, half standing, over there." She nodded toward a structure 20 feet off, roof sagging, one wall scorched but intact enough for shelter. She paused, then added, I saw ye, tamed that big bastard. Saved what's left of us." Her lips twitched, not quite a smile, but a spark lingered. Gratitude, perhaps more. Gothir leaned in, resting a hand near hers on the dirt, his tone dropping to console her. "Erin, huh? Sorry about your axe to the chest is a hard way to go. You're tough, holding up like this. Anything I can do, you just say it." His eyes locked with hers, sincere but edged with intent, testing the waters as his strength and confidence filled the space between them. Erin exhaled, brushing a strand of blonde hair back as she studied him. "Tough's all I got left," she muttered, then nodded faintly. "Helps kind of ye. Maybe. Just sit a bit. Been alone with this too long." Her voice wavered, but her gaze held, open if he pushed it. Lirien had found a spot near the well, a flat patch with the horses tethered and gauzered dumping gear. She watched Gothir, smirking like she knew his game. Night fell fast, and Dunmere quieted. Graves dug, survivors huddled. The air cooled, carrying the tang of ash and blood, but Gothir stood at the village's heart, his legend growing with every whispered word. Gothir nodded at Erin, standing as he brushed dirt from his knees, his voice steady and warm. "Let's get your hut manageable," he said, offering a hand to help her up. She took it, her grip firm, calloused, and he led her toward the half-standing structure 20 feet away, its sagging roof and scorched wall looming in the twilight. Ducking inside, the air hung thick with smoke and damp earth. Gothir set to work, shifting a fallen beam with his chiseled strength, propping it against the wall, and kicking debris aside to clear a space. His eyes flicked to Erin as he moved, letting flirtation weave into his words, light but probing. "So, Erin," he said, hefting a charred plank and setting it aside, "why hasn't a woman like you got a man yet, or married? Village this size, someone's got to have tried." He glanced at her, sweeping ash out with his boot. She leaned against the doorway, watching him, her freckled face softening. "Ain't for lack of offers," she replied, her voice low. "Had a suitor, Tanner's boy, 2 summers back. Dull as dirt, drank too much. Just scared off the rest, said none were worth me. Guess he was right, till now." Her eyes met his, a flicker of interest cutting through her grief. Gothir grinned, propping up a wobbly table. "How old are you then?" he asked, openly looking her up and down. Her lean, sturdy frame hinted at curves beneath the torn shawl, her blonde hair falling in messy strands. She was cute enough, with a quiet fire that caught his eye. 27, Erin answered, straightening under his gaze, not shying away. Old enough to know better, young enough to not care sometimes. Her lips twitched, almost a smile, as she stepped closer to help with a broken chair. He kept the flirtation alive, hands busy but attention on her. 27 and no man? Their loss. Bet you'd keep a hut running smoother than this one's ever been." He winked, hammering a loose board into place with a fist. Outside, Lirien's voice drifted over. "Goat, camp's set," followed by Gorzard's grunt, but Gothir stayed in the moment. The tight space warmed despite the ruin. The work left a livable corner, a table propped, debris cleared, and Gothir paused, the broken board in his hand forgotten. He stepped closer to Erin, the dim light casting shadows across her freckled face. His hand slid to the small of her back, fingers brushing under her torn shawl, her skin warm against his calloused palm. He pulled her gently toward him, locking eyes, his gaze bold, electric with intent. "Can I keep you warm tonight?" he asked, his voice low and smooth, the Gothir charm dialed up as his afro brushed the low roof, the bone necklace swaying faintly. Erin froze for a heartbeat, her breath catching. Her green eyes, red-rimmed but sharp, searched his, surprise mingling with something hotter. She didn't pull away, leaning slightly into his grip as tension hummed between them. "Warm her," she murmured, voice hoarse but steadying. "Been cold a long time, since before today. Ye mean it, or ye just talkin' pretty?" Her lips parted, hands hovering near his chest, not touching yet, testing him, daring him to prove it. Her shawl slipped, revealing the curve of her shoulder, the air thick and charged. Gothir didn't hesitate, closing the space as his lips met hers, a hungry edge to the kiss that silenced doubt. She gasped against him, hands gripping his shoulders as he tasted the salt of her grief and the heat of her response. His hand slid lower, tugging at the shawl and ragged tunic. Fabric tore free, falling to the dirt as he bared her skin. Freckled and taut, her body pressed warm against him, her breath hitching as he took control. With a smooth flex, he hoisted her up, hands gripping her thighs as he lifted her effortlessly, her legs swinging over his shoulders. She yelped, a mix of surprise and thrill, her hands scrambling to grab the sagging rafters for balance. Gothir pressed her close, diving into her warmth with bold, relentless hunger, his tongue working deep, drawing sharp, raw moans from her. Her hips bucked, fingers digging into the wood, the hut amplifying every sound, wet, desperate, alive. Erin's thighs trembled, clamping around him as he pushed her further, her blonde hair spilling wild. "Gods ye," she gasped, words breaking into whimpers as he kept going, hands needing her to hold her steady. Her moans grew louder, echoing off the battered walls, her body unraveling. "Oh gods," she choked out, then shattered, a raw cry tearing free as her climax hit, her grip slipping. Gothir held her, riding it out until she gasped, limp against him. He lowered her from his shoulders, her legs shaky as he caught her waist, then pivoted and eased her onto a makeshift bed, furs and straw in the corner, barely intact but enough. She landed softly, panting, hair splayed wild. "Lift up," he growled, voice thick as he shed his pants, freeing himself, hard, ready. Erin obeyed, dazed but eager, pushing up on her knees, back arching as he positioned behind her. He eased in slow, stretching her inch by inch, her gasps filling the air as he sank deep, a low groan escaping him. Once she'd taken him, Gothir grabbed her hair, pulling her head back as he began to move, long, hard thrusts, hips slamming into her with a rhythm that shook the furs. Her moans turned to cries, the hut creaking as he drove into her, relentless, one hand gripping her hip to keep her angled just right. The night outside faded, Lirien and Gorzard too far to hear, Dunmere's survivors lost in their grief. It was just them, raw and unrestrained, the heat building. He ramped it up, adding pressure with a thumb, making her gasp and tighten around him. Her cries sharpened as he picked up the pace. Faster, harder, a primal beat echoing in the hut. "Take it," he growled, voice rough, the rhythm relentless. Erin bucked back, overwhelmed but chasing it, her body slick with sweat, hair tangled in his grip. "Gods, harder," she choked out, giving in fully, her warmth gripping him tight. Gothir pulled out, Erin shuddering as he eased back. He nudged her to the side, her legs buckling as she flopped onto the furs. Dropping beside her, he stretched out on his back, still hard, propping himself on an elbow. "Get on top," he said, grinning, eyes locked on hers. "I want those beautiful breasts in my face." The bone necklace swayed as he settled into the straw. Erin caught her breath, a shaky smile tugging at her lips as she crawled over, unsteady but eager. "Yuri something," she muttered, voice hoarse, swinging a leg over his hips. She lowered herself, guiding him back in with a slow slide, gasping as he filled her again. Her hands braced on his chest, nails digging into his caramel skin as she began to move, her breasts swaying close, full, soft, tipped with pink. Gothir grabbed her waist, pulling her down harder, his mouth finding a nipple, sucking and teasing as she rode him, her moans spilling free. The furs shifted, the hut's walls creaking faintly, but it was just them, her rhythm building, her body his to claim. She rocked faster, her slick warmth gripping him with every rise and fall, her nails raking his chest. "Gods ye!" she gasped, quickening, chasing the edge. He felt it build, the heat coiling as her thighs trembled against him. Thrusting up to meet her, hard and steady, Gothir grunted as the pressure snapped. He spilled inside her, a hot rush as he groaned, hands digging into her flesh. Erin shuddered, her own climax hitting as she felt him, a sharp cry breaking before she collapsed onto him, panting, her breasts pressed against his chest, sweat mingling. They lay there, catching their breath, her heartbeat thudding against his skin. The hut quieted, just the soft crackle of distant embers outside, the faint rustle of night air through the gaps. Gothir wrapped an arm around her, letting her curl into him, and pulled the furs over them. "Stay warm now," he murmured, half smirking as exhaustion claimed him. Erin mumbled something, grateful, sleepy, nestling closer as he drifted off, Dunmere's chaos fading into the dark. End of chapter 4. Please like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, comment your favorite part.